Your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Friday, June 14th. We are here live. It's time for trucking, technology, and efficiency, and a Friday free-for-all. We'll lump it all together today. You can talk about anything you want. I'm probably going to cut the show short today. I'm going to bring in Joel and Alec. They're already here. Looks like Henry might be rolling in right about now. Joel, Henry, well, I don't have Henry yet. Alec, good morning. There's Henry. We'll get everybody in here.
Good morning.
We'll just start talking all over each other. Works better that way.
Good morning.
Everybody,
Sounds like a plan.
Everybody's here. All right, guys, I got to warn you. All the recruiting you try today isn't going to work. I'll hang up on 10 calls if I have to. My grandkids are here this weekend.
Well, that's good, Kevin, because I have work to do out in the forge, and I came inside where it was quiet. So
I was going to say, why does that stop you from doing work on the forge? You do that every week.
Trying to be multitasking, you know?
Got it. Yeah, my grandkids rolled in last night, and it's the first time we've met our granddaughter, and she's 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So they're here for the weekend.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. We got a weekend planned. It should be fun. But calls are coming in. Phone lines are open. Jump in and join us because we might just make this quick. I have nothing to talk about this week, or do I? Do I have anything I wanted to talk about? Just one weird story I just read a couple minutes ago. People hiking in the Grand Canyon. Like hundreds of people all got sick at the same time. Hiking in the Grand Canyon. Like they called it like norovirus-like symptoms, like all kinds of GI, vomiting, diarrhea, fevers of like 104 and 105. They were airlifting people out.
That's no joke.
Yeah, and it all
happened what was in the air
at once. I know. It seems really bizarre. They actually said there have been hundreds of people posting about this.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's weird. Weird stuff. I know. Maybe it was space aliens or something.
That's what I was going to say.
In today's world, you just never know. I mean, you might as well just put on your tinfoil hat and get out, start looking for black helicopters and come up with the craziest answer you can, because it might just be true.
Chemtrails.
That could do it.
Heaven overnight.
Solar radiation. The poles are moving and we're losing our protection from solar radiation. Maybe that was it.
There you go.
Or the North Koreans poisoned the Colorado River.
That's probably what it was. It was probably the North Koreans.
I think it was them.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What kind of sick were they getting, Kevin?
Like
throwing up sick?
Yeah, horrible GI symptoms, throwing up, but fever of 104 and 105. That's bad.
Yeah, it's the Korean flu.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I've been told that our next pandemic is bird flu. Maybe it's already starting.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Birds fly in the Grand Canyon.
They do.
Sure.
They do. Well, now the bird flu seems to have jumped to some cattle and a couple people, I think. So they're calling that our next pandemic. This one, though, is also going to wipe out our food supply.
Well, it just makes it interesting.
Right. That's for sure. All right. That's all I have today. Anybody else have anything?
I've got something.
All right.
I always have something.
You do. That's right. It's usually good, too.
You know how we have spoke at length about engine architecture.
Yes.
So Volvo has done some refinements to the rotating assembly of the D13. And they have actually lengthened the connecting rod by 4%. They shortened the piston up by 15%. And that changes the thrust angle of the rod by 1%. So instead of a 16 degree or 1 degree, instead of a 17 degree thrust angle, we're now at 16 degrees. And that, the old engine, the legacy engine, that exerted about 1,185 pounds of thrust into the liner. And by changing that thrust angle 1 degree and making the changes they did to the connecting rod, they reduced that thrust load by 6%.
Wow.
And that gains us about 1% in fuel efficiency.
Wow.
By reducing that thrust angle and the
So-
load. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, everything they did is really just tweaking and refining what they've already built, right?
Exactly. They know that they have industry-leading rotating assembly, and that's exactly right. They're tweaking it and refining it and making it even better. So I guess this is what we're going to call the Gen 3
Okay.
D13 TC. It also has 7 waves instead of 6 waves in the wave piston, and they added an extra hole to the injector, and there's a lot of really cool stuff going on here. But that the rotating assembly thing, I posted a really nice video. I don't know if you saw it. It's on X, and it walks you through an animation of exactly what's going on. So it's a little easier for people to understand this, because I know this is a subject that a lot of people have a hard time visualizing.
Right.
And, it was kind of amazing to me that they got a 6% reduction in that thrust force. And when I start to think about some competitive engines that really have that connecting rod lean going on, you can just imagine how many pounds of thrust they're putting into that liner on every power stroke.
You know what I think of, and when we go back, when we've been talking about fuel economy forever, virtually everything we do, all the modifications, whether it's the engine, the driveline, even aerodynamics technically, we're really trying to reduce friction losses. And
Yes.
we always talk about when we built the first signature truck, the way the guy that bought it described it as like everything seems to move easier. Like the truck rolls easier, the engine feels like it's turning easier. And that's really what we're talking about. And they just keep refining that. When I heard you describing that, I'm thinking that engine is just running so much freer now.
Sure, absolutely. And the big thing when you think about this in terms of fuel efficiency, and I know this drives the engineers just nuts. So they look at this and they optimize the geometry of the rotating assembly, and they can put formulas to it all, and they say, wow, we gained almost 1% in fuel efficiency, based on this calculation, that calculation. What they cannot calculate is how this impacts kinetic energy rolling down the road. And, we see out in the real world, when we understand how to leverage the benefits of this friction reduction, that kinetic energy gain typically is 2 to 3 times what the mechanical gain is on the friction reduction.
Oh, that's right.
If you're geared right, you understand how to use it. So,
yeah.
When they say 1%, I kind of giggle and I go, that's a good 5% for me right there, because I'm going to understand how to use this and how to take advantage of it. So, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it is.
I'm really looking forward to getting into the new ride with this, all this new technology that they've got coming. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, that's exciting. What else?
We had some pretty good fuel efficiency runs here lately. We are hauling some heavier loads now. We're doing a lot more work for ArcBest, which does a lot of reefer stuff. And when they do run van loads, they're typically heavier. for the last, I think I left on the 4th, the 4th or the 5th. Every load I've pulled, except for one, I believe, has been in that 77 to 79,000 pound range, and I'm at 9.6 for the week.
Pretty damn impressive.
Doing pretty well with the heavier weight, and no trailer arrow either. Travis had an exceptional run. He picked up a load of baking soda from Central Ohio and ran it to Central New York. And he was right at 80,000 pounds. And that leg, he was 10.9 running up there.
Wow.
Dropped that. Yeah, picked up a load of pallets that was, right around 40,000 pounds, and then dropped that. And then he picked up a multi-stop PetSmart delivery that he was right at 80,000 pounds again. And for the week, he's at 10.7.
So
I'm not complaining.
Well, here's what I wonder. If you were to post this and put in all those details, it's 80,000 pounds, it's multi-stop, here's the geography, what excuse would they be able to post then? Because what they always post. Oh, well, you must have only had, styrofoam peanuts in the trailer, and you must have gone downhill the whole way. And I mean, you kind of covered it all here. We got some challenging geography. We've got heavy weight. It's not going to get any heavier. And we have multi-stop. What could they possibly try to point out now?
It's easy.
Exactly right.
When you talk about all that, I mean, because I've been there, done that with all the people, and you're just not in the real world, or you got something special, or somebody's pushing you, or something. There'd be something.
I know.
Or you're going too slow, or you're following the wind. There'd be something. They always have something because they don't want it to be.
Right. No, you're 100% right, Henry. And the multi-stops, there's 4 of them, and they came up around Albany, New York. So we had a lot of traffic and terrain.
Exactly, right. So, come on. I mean,
me and Joel have discussed this. I really appreciate him taking the pressure off me on those posts. But I'll be back on the road Monday, finally. I've been involved with a tag and title fiasco that's had me off the road since the last week of April. So finally getting back on the road Monday.
I have decided there are 2 organizations that I absolutely try to minimize my contact with. Anything the government does and our medical system. I just try to stay as far away from those 2 things as I can. Yeah, that's bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got to talk to secretaries of states and all sorts of stuff. It was interesting. Actually, what was surprising here in Texas, the Secretary of State and the comptroller, the people I got a hold of there were just so exceptionally helpful after the hour and a half wait. But, when I finally got through, I mean, they were just fantastic, actually.
Well, that's good.
Nice.
Yeah, that helps.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
What else we got this morning?
Well, the only thing I was going to jump in with is I saw a headline. I regret that I haven't read the article, but something that Joel and I had talked about in the national security realm, and that was that some researchers had finally taken over a truck through the ELD. And that's something that I know, Kevin, you had talked about probably 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Or close to it. And Joel and I had talked about it in one of my articles about national security as it relates to pay, and that this is one of the things that needs to be addressed from dare I say it, a governmental policy standpoint, because ELDs can be hacked. And if these researchers have just figured it out, I'm sure the Russians and the Chinese have had this capability for a few years by now.
So when you
you had to open up a can of worms this morning.
Take over the truck. To what aspect?
Henry, thank you. Because that's where I went with this 5 years ago. It's where I'm going to go now.
Yeah.
Russia, China, Iran, all of these countries, they can hack all kinds of things. They've hacked our electrical grid. We know they're in there. They've hacked our water plants. They hacked the meat plant and screwed that up for a while. They steal, 1 million credit card numbers a day. What I'm trying to figure out is what purpose would anybody go through all this trouble of trying to hack a single truck? Why?
Well, they could take multiple ones down at once. That could cause some gridlock.
If
rush
but
hour, if all the trucks shut off.
If they could figure something like that out, but I don't know how you manage that. I mean, it's like people worry about using their credit card on a website or somebody stealing their credit card number. Nobody tries to steal single credit cards anymore. They're going after the server of a company you have no control over, but you did business with, and they hack 1 million accounts at a time because this stuff is not easy. It's not like they just go in and click a couple keys and go, oh, look, I just hacked that truck. They might have had 15 people working around the clock for 6 months before they figured out how to do this. And then as soon as they figure out the vulnerability, then we can usually close that loophole. And now they've got to go find another one. And that could take thousands of man hours again.
Well, but look at it, Kevin. If you have at rush hour, say Houston, Atlanta, wherever it may be, if one truck breaks down out in the center lane, the amount of congestion that instantly makes.
Right.
So you wouldn't have to have that many.
But let's think about this for a second. Come on. That is an annoyance in life. We have accidents every day that cause all kinds of big backups, and it's just an annoyance. We live with it. They don't want to annoy people. They want to kill people and terrorize people. So I don't understand why we are concerned about the truck hacking.
Because here, I think taking Henry's example to the exponential factor, if you can say, look, all the trucks in X location, we're just going to shut them down. So you're not going to have just one truck in one lane causing havoc. You could have 500 trucks in Metro Atlanta on the loop, shut the highways down all at once.
So
you're right.
Somebody's going to have to
onesie-twosies.
Well, somebody's going to have to explain to me. They don't try again. I'm going to go back to the way they've been hacking since we've had computers. They don't hack 100,000 or even 10 individual computers at a time. You can only get into one system at a time, unless you have a bunch of people. That's just not the way they do it. They go after big servers that they can take down one thing and create all kinds of chaos. And it's usually they want to do things worse than just annoy us with traffic. So I don't see this.
Some of the bigger systems could take quite a few trucks all at once.
Well, somebody would show me, like which system? What are they going to hack that will then get through that system into the ECM on each one of these individual trucks?
Yeah, I didn't read the article. I'm just...
No, I know, and
I haven't either yet.
I've read a bunch of articles, but they never address any of those issues. Those are always my questions, but they never address them.
If you think about this, so all of the OEMs have this over-the-air updates, and they can diagnose your engine, and they could wreak havoc in that.
That
they pick
might
the OEMs, they break into that system.
Right.
They could wreak absolute havoc with that.
That could be
the ELD thing.
Yeah,
I'm with you, Kevin. That's kind of bullshit, pie in the sky, nonsense.
Right. There's so many different systems, but you are on the right track.
That they can plant a malware. Instead of uploading from the ELD to the server, if they can download through the over-the-air update down to the individual ELD or into the ECM and affect the truck that way.
Over-the-air updates don't require an ELD. They're directly hardwired into the truck now. So that, to me, is where the bigger problem lies.
Joel is on the right track. The ELD is out. I mean, it's too scattered. Now you've got to go through one device to get to another device on the truck. That creates a lot of more complication. He's right. You would go right for the ECM itself, and you would do it through the OEM. And my hope is that that is much easier to protect against. It's only a couple OEMs that have to make sure they maintain really good security and they fix any loopholes we find, and the damage would be pretty well minimized that way. Now, if they manage to get in there and nobody's paying attention, and they might really wreak havoc once. I would hope, because think about it. I mean, like I said, everything is computerized these days. You can hack banks and get millions and millions of dollars. You can hack water systems and affect 1 million people with one hack. You can hack the electrical grid and affect millions of people. I just don't see these.
Pipelines and all that.
Right. There are much, much bigger targets than a bunch of trucks.
Oh, I agree with you, but I don't see the trucks as just that's the end. I think it's just one piece of a very small puzzle.
Could be.
If there is going to be a cyber war,
I don't see him doing it.
It's going to be all of the above.
Yeah, I don't see him doing it through the ELD.
Well, I will research and report back to you as my homework assignment.
All right. We'll look forward to that. What other conspiracy theories can we debate?
I don't know that we need any more.
Well, and the other thing that
take some phone calls today, huh?
I think we should. The other thing I'll say about conspiracy theories is we're almost running out of them because they keep coming true.
Is it a conspiracy then?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a conspiracy. It's no longer a theory.
It's reality.
There you go.
Right. It's just a conspiracy now, not a theory. It's the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's take some calls. Let's go to Alabama. Tony, good morning.
Morning. Joel, can you teach me how to drive this truck in traffic? You sometimes talk about your routes where you have lights and hills and cities and not gassing on the low gears to save wear and tear, but I'm holding up a lot of traffic and catching every light if I keep it at, 75% torque to try to save those low gears. So can you just talk about like lubrication, bearings, when to push the low end to get through these cities and not catch every light? Because I think I'm wasting more fuel by starting out slow.
Well, here's the thing. If you got a string of lights you got to get through, I pop it into performance mode and I put my foot on the floor and I'll bop through them lights. Every situation is different, obviously. You have to do what makes sense for your individual situation. If you're going so slow that you're getting caught by every light, then you may be exactly right. You may be wasting fuel and not doing yourself any favor, for sure. Now, that being said...
What about that?
Mm-hmm.
Go
ahead.
What about that hill where you're at the bottom of the hill at a light, and you're not climbing that hill in less than an hour if you don't step on gas in that diesel for people that don't know the difference. If I'll be stuck in sixth gear to get up that hill unless I push that low end. So you're gonna let me damage or put more wear and tear in that situation, and it's okay at almost 1 million miles I can do that, or should I try to stay off and ease it up that hill?
Again, it's situationally dependent. I mean, I'd have no problem going up that hill. I put my foot on the floor and get up the damn thing. And every truck is.
And I kept hearing you saying something. You're going to allow me to do damage. You're not doing any damage. I mean, we might be burning a little more fuel, but it's minimal in the big scheme of things, and you're not doing any damage. This engine will handle this all day long.
Well, now, this Packard does, when you put it into D at, the fuel pump or whatever, it does slam into gear and surge forward sometimes or backwards.
So
I'm sorry, I
here's
didn't.
that.
I didn't realize we don't accept calls for pack car engines on this show. I'm sorry.
Well, this is where it becomes problematic, because when you have an I shift, you're in the Stone Age with the automated manuals that Eaton produces, and they slam around. They just suck, plain and simple.
I
there's
gotta
no
ask.
other way to put it.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, I'm trying that Volvo that I was talking to you about last week when Kevin had audio problems, and I remember you were here. What is a timing plate? Because they put $8,000 on that truck with the 12.5 front end that you said no way into a timing plate. It's something in between, I guess, the what is it? Engine and transmission.
And the engine, yeah, because the gear train's on the back of that engine, and they must have had a leak or something, so they must have dropped the transmission and replaced the timing plate on the back. That's what it sounds like.
What does it do? Because I know there's a transmission, there's the gears, there's the engine, there's a flywheel.
Gear train. It seals up the entire gear train in the back, so everything on a Volvo engine's on the back of the engine. As far as the air compressor and the timing gears and everything is on the back. The gear train is on the back of the engine, and that has to be sealed up because it is lubricated with oil, and you don't want oil leaking all over. So they must have had a leak in timing plate.
So you're not worried about that? If it had a 13.2 like you want and everything else was fine, would you be worried about that kind of modification at 450 K?
I wouldn't be personally. No, like I said, you virtually never see that. I wouldn't be all that worried about it.
So, jumping in here, listening to this, Kevin, with what he's talking about on any given hill or whatever, and the way I like to look at it, and this doesn't matter what brand of truck you're in, what transmission you're in, your real goal, if you really think about what you're doing with the throttle and what you're doing with the truck, is you're managing heat and trying to create as little heat as you can to go from point A to point B. You're controlling that with the pedal. There's times where it's time to make heat because, well, you're going straight uphill, whatever that may be. But you're really looking at the big picture from point A to point B, how to create as little heat as you can to get where you need to go.
Another way of saying this is you are matching horsepower output with your foot to the demand of the situation. And if you're on a steep grade, it's going to demand some horsepower. Horsepower dictates how fast you go up the hill. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about managing horsepower. And the bottom line is, if you want to get from point A to point B in a hurry, so you don't want to get stuck by a bunch of lights, it's going to require more horsepower, more heat, just like Henry's saying.
And more fuel.
It's just going to.
Right.
So you have to make that decision as a driver. Does this make sense for me? The other thing that you have to look at is, okay, this is how my truck runs. It jerks me around when I'm trying to get through gears. Okay, you have to take that into consideration. Do all trucks do that? Absolutely not. So, every circumstance is going to be different, and this is kind of the problem when we talk about hypotheticals and or even very specific situations. They're not going to apply across the board, and if I had a pickup that I had to be at in 15 minutes and I'm 15 miles away and there's a bunch of stoplights and it's going to pay me an extra $4,000, you can bet your ass.
Hammer down.
Performance mode, and
That's right.
I'm going to get down there.
Hammer down.
If I'm going across town to go park at a truck stop to take my 34-hour break, it's going in economy mode, and I'm going to baby that thing through every single light.
All the way in. So the other thing, when you're talking about on a hill, and I remember I did this with a driver I was training that was complaining that it had no guts going uphill. Of course, it's geared tall, right? And he's expecting when he jumps on it, it's going to pick up speed going uphill. Well, not many trucks are going to unless they're juiced way up. But I showed him how far he could leave off the throttle and not lose speed. So, yeah, he was putting it to the floor and he wasn't gaining no speed, but he was able to come almost halfway off the throttle and he wasn't losing any speed. Well, that's the side you want to be to not burning the fuel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you talk
managing your
about
horsepower. Yep.
Yeah, when you talk about easing into the throttle off of a light and, saving fuel economy that way, you're not talking about a string of lights where that easing off will cost you minutes at every light if you
Correct.
don't, burn a little bit of diesel and
Correct.
get through.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Unless by backing off it gets you onto a green light cycle.
well,
Right, yeah, and we know about
the
that.
whole thing of it
That's
is,
not happening.
it's what's in front of you for that day. And every day I plan my day because every day is different. And some days I run 55 mile an hour, some days I run 75 mile an hour. Some days I'm in performance mode, some days I'm in economy mode. That's how that works. And you're going to have to make that decision based on what's happening right at the moment. And I'll tell you right now, I do it either way.
Want to hear more about the lubrication system and this inner workings of the powertrain, because you talk about overdrive and
so the lubrication system is going to be completely different from manufacturer to manufacturer on the transmission. One of the issues, and I know I'm going to catch a whole lot of shit for this from people, but one of the issues with the old manual transmissions, if you look at how they're put together, they are dual counter shafts. They have an auxiliary section that have more counter shafts. They're straight cut gears, which have to be bigger to carry the load, which requires more oil. They have excessive amounts of oil, and it costs money to pump oil. It costs efficiency to pump oil around those transmissions. They are extremely inefficient in comparison to what's available today. Some of the automated manual transmissions, and most of this comes from the Eaton Fuller side, where they like their dual countershaft transmissions, and they typically require more lube oil because you have more moving parts. You have some efficiency issues. Now, that being said, the latest Endurant transmission, they've done a very nice job. They went to helical cut gears. They made them smaller. They got rid of the dual counter shafts in the back, or the auxiliary section, and went to a planetary, and they kind of moved into the 21st century with the European manufacturers as far as the transmissions were put together. So it's extremely hard for me to say anything in a generic sense that's going to apply across the board with the way today's transmissions are laid out. Freightliner has done a very good job with the DT12. The I-Shift, most people consider that an industry-leading transmission in terms of efficiency because we pump very little oil, and they've run helical cut gears and planetaries in the rear auxiliary section for years now. This is nothing new to them. It's a single counter shaft, not a dual counter shaft. So there's a lot of things going on there. The new Scania transmission is the same way coming across. It is a single counter shaft design with a planetary in the back. So, it depends on what genre of technology you're talking about when you start to get into that lubrication system on transmissions.
Joel,
I know what you're saying. What I find odd with all this is that the European transmissions are single counter shaft, especially knowing the purpose between a dual counter shaft for the main reason is to be able to build a short wheelbase truck from way back in the day when there was length laws. Being able to keep that transmission short enough, and these single counter shaft transmissions, which you wouldn't think would get along with Europe, but they do, are really long compared to the old 10 speeds and 13 speeds that we knew from.
Hey, Joel.
Eaton.
Hey, haven't the people who have really focused on fuel economy and gearing and all these things, weren't we complaining about the transmission in the 90s? We were kind of begging for some other option. We all knew that the transmission was kind of the weak link in the whole system. We couldn't get low enough gears to gear high. We had the all the pumping losses and the friction. So we wanted to run in direct to try to cut down on that. I mean, it seems to me like
Right.
Volvo finally said, hey, look at how many improvements we can make if we just design a better transmission.
Correct. And then you get into the whole thing about overdrive versus direct drive in the efficiency thing, which further complicates
Right.
things, because you get people that want to just say, hey, look at the efficiency gain, but they're only looking at the transmission.
Correct.
And they don't understand what it's doing to thermodynamics, pumping losses, all of the things that we talk about that are going into the engine when you run in direct drive at a slightly elevated RPM. Sure, you have a little more horsepower there because you have more RPM, but what if you're in a duty cycle that doesn't require the extra horsepower?
Right.
Now you're wasting fuel. So it works both ways. It is not clear cut, and I cringe every time I hear people say, well, run indirect, it's more efficient. You don't know that. you can't know that. So it's
but it still can be. Yep. That's what makes it interesting.
You're exactly right, Henry. It can be, and it's typically when you're at a heavier load range at moderate speeds is typically where direct drive really comes into its own. If you want to run 60 mile an hour with 80,000 pounds, direct drive, I run it in my truck in direct drive when I'm doing that.
Right.
It'll knock it out of the ballpark. But if you have 47,000 pounds gross running direct drive, you're killing yourself. You're shooting yourself in the foot. You need to be running in overdrive to match the horsepower applied to the horsepower required. And then you get the efficiency gain in the engine because of the lower RPM outweighs the efficiency loss in the transmission from being an overdrive versus direct. And these are things that most people, they don't look at, they don't understand. They just don't have time. Most people are busy running their businesses. They don't have time to geek out on gears and friction and kinetic energy. And so it's not a subject that's well understood.
Well, and adding to what you're saying there, to me, when you get to some fleets that, okay, the fastest the truck's ever going to run is 62 unless gravity's taking it. And
this is
always
true.
Loaded.
And the other thing about this, when people go, oh, look, such and such a fleet, they gear their truck with direct drives, copy that. Well, here's why you don't copy that. So when you manage a fleet, like my brother's fleet, you always have to think about the lowest common denominator, the worst driver in the fleet. How can we make this truck easy for them to drive? Direct drive is extremely easy to drive because you have that elevated RPM, so you always have more power available. You'll have less shifting. If you're on a manual, it'll hold that gear longer. But it's almost never the most efficient way to gear a truck, but it is probably one of the easiest trucks to train a new driver on.
Well,
That's
yeah.
what the big fleets are looking at because of the turnover. It's so easy to train a guy in a direct drive transmission versus an overdrive, because just like we're doing right now, trying to explain, when would you use overdrive? When would you use direct drive? It's kinetic energy. It's this, it's that. And people just don't understand that. So the fleets just say, you know what, screw this. We're just going to put a direct drive transmission in there, and then I don't have to explain any of this stuff.
Yep.
And the one thing that, when you get geared up that tall like you are, and I'm not quite as far as you are, when a truck gets geared that tall, you have to drive it differently. And the one thing that those really tall gears do not like is what in racing they refer to as a light switch driver, where they only know two positions on the throttle, all the way down or all the way off. And when you have those tall gears, when you put your foot all the way down, all you're doing is opening up them fuel injectors somewhere in the neighborhood of 35,000 PSI and pressure washing pistons. That's all you're managing to do.
You're correct, and this is why we have things called like dynamic torque, where it senses the weight, it senses the grade, and it says, okay, this guy is just what Henry described. He's going to put his foot on the floor. We're only going to give him exactly what he needs to move this load. So they have obviously thought about this, and they have tools to accommodate that type of driver, and they make it much easier. But you're right, Henry. If you took those controls off and you gave that truck to a guy, and the guys at Pittsburgh Power like to call it the babysitting functionality. I'm telling you, that is necessary for a lot of guys out here. They don't understand.
Wait a minute, time out.
And they have to have that. Mm-hmm.
Am I muted?
Right.
Hey, Henry, I think you're teaching a lot of people right now, including me, that is there a position in a throttle in that case actually where beyond which you're not gaining anything?
That's what I'm telling you.
Tony,
Yes,
Tony,
well, you are, but you're not. So when you're climbing a hill, and you got your foot to the floor because, by God, I need to get there, and there's a red light up the road, right? So see how far you can lift off that throttle and not lose any speed. You know you're not gaining it, but see how far you can come back and not lose any.
Everybody stop for a second. I'm going to sum.
Your torque or
Tony,
torque
stop.
gauge or
Stop.
your
Tony, just stop.
what?
Just stop. I'm going to summarize this, and then we're going to move on. Here's what's happening in this conversation. Joel and Henry and Alec and myself keep talking about this is very, very nuanced, and it's getting more nuanced all the time. This was much easier to explain fuel economy to people in the 90s than it is today. It's getting more and more complicated with more and more proprietary systems that are doing things differently. And what you keep asking for, Tony, you keep asking for an easy answer. And we keep trying to explain to you that there are no easy answers on this. It's very nuanced.
There's a lot of research that you would have to do to understand what parameters are set up in your truck. Are the economy parameters turned on? Is the torque management turned on? What's it set at? You know, what are the thresholds? What's the triggers? I mean, I understand this because I've worked with it for going on 15 years now at the very highest levels with the guys at Powertrain. Henry understands the Detroit platform very same way because he's done the exact same thing. Neither me nor Henry can tell you specifically what's going on with your Packard. Now, we've got a good general idea, or conceptually we understand what's going on, but I couldn't tell you how to get inside that and what parameters to set to make it do the things that you wanted to do. I don't know who the PACCAR experts are that do that type of thing. I don't know if the Pittsburgh Power guys understand that on the PACCAR platform. I just simply don't know, and so it's really difficult. I understand what you're saying, and I understand the answers you're looking for. The problem is I can't give them to you because I don't have any experience with that individual platform.
Joel, even when you do, I mean, think about how extensive the training program would need to be. And you've kind of gone through this, and you've done a hell of a job with it, with Travis and some other people. But it's not easy to, even on the Volvo platform that you completely understand, it's still not easy to train a driver. This isn't something you tell them one time and now they got it. It takes practice.
Well, that's one I run into a lot doing driver training, and I'll be running the truck and showing them what's what and everything else. Then we're coming back on the run, and Joel, you know exactly what I'm saying because Volvo's thing is very similar to this. And at the top of the hill, every time they put their foot on the throttle.
Yeah.
Every time.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so not only is it nuanced, even once you kind of understand it conceptually, that doesn't mean you're going to go out and drive a truck and hit a home run every time.
This is true. I mean, you really have to study and do your homework for your individual spec, your engine, your transmission, that particular model year. You have to understand the parameters. And I just simply don't know a soul that you could go to on the PACCAR side. You know,
No.
If you were asking me about Detroit, I'd say go talk to Henry. He's going to tell you everything you need to know.
Right.
But I don't know that PACCAR person. I don't really know. Well, Pittsburgh Power knows the Cummins side of things for the most part. They do a pretty damn good job with. But as far as the PACCAR, I don't know that person.
Now, John was actually working on somebody for us, kind of, you know, in upper management engineering, kind of, and maybe we would have found some people through that. We just John fell off the face of the earth and we haven't heard from him for a year.
He went
He
racing.
hit my post. He hit my post the other day about the rotating assembly. So
Every
he's still around.
I know every once in a while he'll comment on a post, and I think once I got a text from him saying, "Hey, I've been really busy racing. I'll be on the show next Friday." That was like 3 months ago, I think. So we'll see. I miss him.
When you get to play with a Ferrari,
I know.
How exciting is a Volvo or a Detroit? Come on.
Yeah, when Ferrari calls you at the last minute and flies you over to Italy to run their race team, I guess you say yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's. We're just gonna totally go off script here because I said today was free for all. We'll take any questions we want. Doug, what's on your mind today?
Thanks for taking my call. But on the multiple stop, awesome fuel mileage, you can tell them the same thing that I tell them. I got a pony motor on the trailer, just a little generator, and for $3,000. And if they want to tie it together for $7,000, I'll send them a drive line, put it on the trailer. That's what I tell them. So you get the haters on the post. Yeah.
There you go.
Between Kevin and you guys, you've improved my fuel mileage, multiple stops, about 3.9, and it works, and the drivability of the truck.
Excellent.
I leave stoplight, skills, everything. I leave it the same. I lead the same way on the throttle. Instead of going down and coming back, I go the opposite. I just try to roll that egg forward without breaking it until it stops and grab another gear.
There you go.
Yep.
If it's a hill or level ground, stoplight, or time them and try to slow way down and start hitting green lights. But
it's amazing too that when you do all that, the difference in time that it takes you to do your job. I mean, you get out in big open highway, yeah, you can start making differences in time, like on my route. But most of the time, all your efforts are for nearly nothing other than you're going to burn a bunch of fuel.
Yep. No hill wear. Man, I've phenomenal wear on my tires by just progressive shifting, and it doesn't matter if it's a hill or not. But I'm on a manual, 18 speed, so I don't know the auto shifts, so I can't really speak much on that. But I would think throttle position would be pretty much the same. Just try to roll that egg forward without breaking it.
Yep. Yeah, the automated manuals really, you drive them just like the manual really, except for you don't have to do it manually. It's all what message you're sending with your foot you can greatly influence when it shifts.
My pickup, I got a pickup with an automatic in it. It's the first automatic I've ever owned. I don't even have any idea how to drive that thing.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Too many buttons on that. But I had two questions. I think they're tied together between allergies and asthma. On that is inflammatory response, right? If on a clean diet, carnivore or ketogenic style, would that be? Can you like with type 2 diabetes can reverse it? Can allergies or asthma?
Yes, they can be reversed. Yeah, here's why. I mean, we will always have some sort of allergic reaction to pollen and other things in our environment, but the reaction will be tamped way down when you have a good, strong, balanced immune system. And sometimes completely eliminated that you have no reaction from any of those things. If you do have a reaction, it's going to be much more mild. When you're eating the standard American diet, you're already inflamed all the time, and your immune system is overworked and overactive, and it just responds poorly to those kind of things. That when you clean up the diet, you reduce all the inflammation so you're not already inflamed, and your immune system is strong and balanced, not weak and unbalanced, then the results, if you feel anything at all, it's going to be much more mild. So those things can absolutely be reversed. And it's one of those things that just happens. We don't do anything different. You just change your diet and those things go away.
Okay. So that would be like snoring is inflammation in the nasal cavity, swelling, whatnot, that causes snoring?
No, that snoring is one of the things you could get as healthy as you want, and a lot of people today are going to snore. And we snore much, much more than our ancestors did for the exact same reason why we have to have our wisdom teeth removed. Our faces, our jaws, and our navel cavities have gotten much, much smaller over time because of poor nutrition. It really coincides, the shrinking of our jaw and our nasal cavities coincides with the start of agriculture. When we started growing food, and we grew a lot of grains, because grains grow easy and store well, that started to shrink our jaw and our nasal cavities. So now we have crowded teeth, and we have to take out wisdom teeth, which we should never have to do because there's not enough room for them. And our nasal cavities are much smaller, so snoring is going to be much more likely no matter how healthy you become.
Okay. All righty. Well, one more question on cinnamon.
Okay.
Trying to figure out what type is lower in oxalate than another, because I like cinnamon on my yogurt that I make, and I'm worried about too high of oxalate to do that.
Okay, so I have never been concerned with oxalates in cinnamon because I don't believe I'm wrong on this. It may be high in oxalates, but you got to remember, how much cinnamon are you actually using? I mean, I'm looking, I can see regular cinnamon, 40 milligrams of oxalate in a teaspoon. We're trying to get about 250 grams of oxalate a day to stay in that kind of safe zone so we don't start oxalate dumping. And who the hell uses a teaspoon of cinnamon in anything?
All right. Well, that answers that.
Yeah, that don't worry about the oxalates in spices and herbs because we use such tiny, tiny amounts of them. It's never going to matter.
Very good. Very good. Well, that's all I have. I really appreciate the show. I've been listening for a long time and got me a long ways in my almost 2.7 million mile truck.
Excellent. Congratulations. That's pretty awesome. All right. Let's go to Tennessee. Jim, welcome.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
You should have an oil sample right there.
All right.
I want you to take a look at. Lisa helped me with it.
Okay, I think this is yours right here. Is it a cat sample?
Yes.
Okay.
Series 60.
All right. Let me look.
53,000 on an in frame.
Takes me just a couple minutes longer on a cat sample. I gotta poke around. Are you running Catalyst?
No.
No Catalyst. All right. I see in the notes.
No, I used to.
Were you running Catalyst during this sample?
No.
Okay. So
I used to on my other truck.
Got it. Okay. So how many miles were on the sample? 25,000?
25, yeah.
25,000.
There's 53,000 on an in frame.
Okay, that may be what's happening then. The wear metals are high. All the wear metals are high.
I know it.
Yeah. A lot of times it's break-in, and sometimes it's an indication maybe the engine wasn't rebuilt as good as it could have been, and we see more break-in wear. This isn't kind of off the charts wear, but it's a little concerning. My guess is it should start to slow down at some point. But what I'm more concerned about, And I kind of have a hard time doing this conversion in my head. Polaris Samples does soot as a percentage, and they use a different, CAT uses a different scale, but I know this number's high. I'm just not sure how high it is without trying to go find my calculator and converting. I'm much more concerned about the high soot.
Are you talking about the soot, Kevin?
Yeah. Yes, soot. I'm more concerned about that.
You're talking about the soot.
What that tells me is the engine just might not be tuned all that well and put together well. We might need, it's a little early for an overhead, but I actually might go in and check it.
Okay.
That initial,
right.
maybe
I'll do
they
that.
didn't get the overhead set right. Maybe it sometimes on a new build it'll knock itself out a little earlier. I would go back in and check the overhead on this.
And start using catalyst, I'm sure. For the
Yeah, I don't know that for sure yet. A lot of engines do benefit from catalyst. There are engines now that don't, but this one probably would. But I'd really like to figure out the soot issue before we change anything else.
Okay. It's got 4,000 miles on this new oil. When do you want me to take another sample?
Let's stay at 25,000 on samples. Let's stay consistent. There's nothing here that
Okay.
we need to try to figure out early. And honestly, there's nothing here that we're probably going to have many solutions for. When I see an engine get rebuilt and then there's high wear metals, there's almost nothing we can do. You just kind of wait it out and see what happens. Now, the soot, that's why I really want to focus on the soot. We want to get that number down. And there are lots of things we can do when an engine's
that's
producing.
why I mentioned the catalyst.
Yeah,
Right.
but I don't want to cover up a problem with the
True.
in that case, I would almost consider the catalyst a Band-Aid. We have an engine that's not burning fuel completely, but let's figure that out first, get that fixed the best we can. Then we could add the catalyst and make it even better. But I don't want to throw some catalyst at it and go, oh, look, we cleaned up the soot, we're fine. Well, no, we're not. There was something wrong. It could be intake restriction. It could be exhaust restriction. It could be valve set. Usually we can figure out why an engine is producing too much soot and fix it.
Man, you're the only one I trust when it comes to oil samples. I really appreciate you taking my call.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Stephen in Tennessee. Stephen, welcome.
Hey guys. Hey, I had a couple of questions. One was I sent in an oil sample, and I want to see if that's connected to a cooling situation that I think I'm having with my engine.
Yes.
But I tuned in a little late this morning. You had a driver call in asking about the DT12 transmission with a PTO system. So I have a 2018 Cascadia with the DT12, and I have a PTO on that, and I've had zero issues for 6 years with it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask.
I
was going to ask these guys: is this common now to have Class 8 trucks without a PTO on the transmission?
The first DT12s, when they first came out, did not have PTO yet, but it wasn't too long after the introduction that PTO was introduced to it.
Okay. How about Volvo, Joe?
Yes.
It's kind of the same thing when they first came out. It was kind of a pain in the ass, but nowadays they've got all kinds of access for PTOs.
Got it. Okay. I think this was just a particular truck that he happened to buy or was looking at, or I don't forget the whole story, but it didn't have one. And he said, it doesn't look like they could really add one. And I said, well, I'm going to have to ask somebody else because I'm not aware of that.
I feel like his question was more like a 2022 and newer was not having them, whereas the older ones did. That's what I was feeling, but I'm not sure either.
No, it was the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't real clear.
And I do have
go back to your
Is
oil
this
sample.
truck-
You do have some weird kind of coolant issue going on. Let me kind of look at the history and see if I can spot the pattern here.
So what happened with it? It spiked up high, and I've had a coolant issue with the truck since day one. But with 1,060,000 on it, I've dealt with it. But I changed the EGR cooler and water pump right before the sample dropped. And my question is, when I'm climbing long grades right now in the summertime, I've never had this issue before. I don't think I can complete a long grade. I haven't had the issue yet, but the other day I got as hot as 229 climbing a grade out of Arizona. And if it would have gone much longer, I don't know if it would have cooled down. But luckily I topped it and it cooled back down. On flat ground, 110 degrees out, it runs fine. But right now, I don't think the truck is cooling on long grades. I don't think it's capable of staying cool. Does that make sense?
Well, we're going to have to go back to our answers like before. This is kind of nuanced as well. You know, it at some point, you know, really high temperatures, possibly high humidity, heavy weight, long grade. We don't build a lot of excess capacity into anything, and we shouldn't. But that sometimes we can just push the limits of how the cooling system was designed. And it didn't shut down.
So, Kevin.
Right, exactly.
Right.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's how you maintain efficiency. You don't build a lot of excess capacity that you might only need once in a rare occurrence.
Here is one
But with
thing
a-
that really freaks a lot of guys out, and I don't know what kind of fan clutch you have. Volvo tends to put that viscous fan clutch on that comes on slowly over time, so you never really hear it. There's never a big engagement, but as you start to push 230 degrees, it's coming into full, and it'll hold right there, right where it's supposed to. That heat is actually efficiency when you're climbing a hill.
Right.
So, you know, again, I don't know what kind of fan clutch or what engine we're talking about here, but that may be completely normal.
To talk about that more, if we have a fan clutch that locks up hard, goes from 0 to 100% when it comes on, it creates a big drop in temperature. We hear it, we see it in the gauge, we feel it, but that's not efficient. It's much more efficient to ease into that fan and only use it to keep it in the safe zone, not to drop it by 10 or 15 degrees, but to keep it right there kind of at the edge of efficiency and heat. And
well, my situation is I've got 1,065,000 on this truck. I've driven. My wife and I have put on every single mile on this truck, so I've seen the pattern over the past 6 years of how this truck operates, and I run pretty much the same routes all the time. So I just think I'm seeing a pattern that I haven't seen in the previous million miles. The engine not.
You just gave the answer in your question. All these systems have 1 million plus miles on them. We talked about the fact that in the very beginning, when they're all new and fresh, they're optimized without a whole bunch of excess capacity. They're not designed.
And that's my question is, But that's my question: is what would I be looking at
here's
to
my
pinpoint why it's not?
Here's my experience with this. And this is improved. We used to deal with this a lot more. I used to get a ton of calls with guys 1 million plus miles, and now their truck overheats when it's a really hot day and they're heavy on a long grade. It never used to do that. It is almost never something broken. It is just a small deterioration in a lot of things over time. The radiator isn't flowing as good as a brand new radiator does.
Yep.
There's your first.
It had cholesterol.
Yeah, exactly. There's your first
it may not
point.
be flowing, right? And it may just be, it may be dirty too. It may need
Right.
blown out on the outside and flushed out on the inside. And it may be as simple as that.
Yep.
Thermostat might need replaced. It might not be opening all the way up.
We might have
The thermostat?
we might have small passages in the system somewhere that are slightly clogged and it's diminished the flow. So many times a new radiator or cleaning out the radiator and cleaning between the radiator and the charger cooler inside and out, many times that can do it. It wouldn't hurt to change the thermostats if they're not hard to get to. You may replace some of those things and kind of solve the problem, but not get back to operating as good as it did when it was new.
Right. So that's just where I was going. I was questioning where would I go next, and I think that's it. Is the radiator could probably, as much as I've changed the fluid a couple times, it's not been flushed, and that was replaced probably 600,000 miles ago.
And you'd be surprised how dirty they can be on the outside. That really diminishes airflow.
Well, yeah, just on that side, the amount of bugs that get in a radiator. Yep, absolutely.
Right, yeah, so that's what I got to do is clean out the radiator. And I just want to mention, too, with the automated transmission and the clutch is $1,065,000. I've still got the original clutch in it. I've never driven the truck with a two-pedal that I heard Henry recommend a couple months ago, I think. But I do drive the truck, like you guys say, with the egg. And I don't know what Tony's talking about, any intersection that he's got to do a high speed to get through it. I just go slow, taking off, and we've done very well with this clutch in this truck.
Good.
Kevin, you reminded me of something when you were talking about dirt in the radiator on the outside side of it. So coming up out of here at Laredo, there's often times that I get into the butterfly migration.
Oh.
Yeah, that requires some cleaning afterwards.
In Florida, it was love bug season.
Oh, the love bugs. I remember them. Yep,
yes.
I used to deal with that too.
Hey, just because it's Friday, I have a weird love bug story, and I'm going to tell it. So first off, I'm not sure if everybody knows why they call them love bugs, because they fly around having sex all the time. There's always two of them attached.
And die on your windshield.
Yes, but I have a worse story than that. And I'll always remember this story and where I was and what was happening. I had bid on my first team run at FedEx. I had moved my operation from Ohio down to Jacksonville, and I had to start over. They treated me like a brand new contractor, and that was part of the deal. I wanted to transfer down there, and they said, "Look, you can't walk in here and bump people out of spots. You're going to have to start at the bottom." I said, "That's fine." But then they opened up Orlando as a brand new terminal. So now anybody who moved down there, I went backwards and I was able to regain all of my points. So my first team run, bought a new truck to do it with, Ford Aeromax. I'm excited. I hired a husband and wife team. They're really good. I'm excited about them. The terminal first dispatch. I mean, we're hooking up at this terminal for the first time. Everybody is. We're all leaving on the first dispatch. So I go up there to help my team get ready, and we hook up to the lead trailer, and the rear trailer was still at the dock. They hadn't closed the door yet. And I said, let's go ahead and hook up to the trailer. As soon as they close the door, you guys can just get going. So the husband gets in the truck, and I'm helping him back up because I'm still training him on doubles. And he gets out of the truck, and the wife starts acting kind of odd. And she's trying to kind of get her husband off to the side, and she's whispering, and I'm like, what's going on? And he looks at me and he says, hey, we have to run to the store. And I'm thinking, all right, no big deal. So they leave. And like 45 minutes later, I'm starting to get a little bit worried. So I'm trying to call them now. And they finally answer the phone, and they said, we're sorry, this job's not for us. Yeah, I mean, we're under dispatch, and I need a team. So now I've got to decide to drive. I've got to call one of my other single drivers and pull him off of a single run so he can come team with me on this thing. So now I'm finishing hooking up and waiting for him to close the door, and I'm waiting for my driver to come in so we can get going. And as I'm walking around the front of the truck, a pair of love bugs, because they're always flying together having sex, runs right into my eyeball, and my eye closed over top of them. They were stuck behind my eyelid. It was
so now you're down to one driver again.
Oh, it was the feeling of them moving behind my eyelid. I almost clawed my eye out. It was horrible. Yeah, that's my crazy love bug story. And then I had to drive
Were you
to
able
Memphis.
to drive then?
I didn't take the first shift. We did
I was going to say, yeah, you were back down to one driver again.
Yeah, the Orlando to Memphis was one of those runs that worked out really well if you did 4 on, 4 off. That was kind of the way we did the driving on that one. So, yeah, not only did I have bugs having sex in my eyeball, I had to drive to Memphis. It was not a good start.
How did that Aeromax work out for you? Because I liked them.
That was one now, I will say this. Cab quality on those things was horrendous. The noise, it sounded like you were closing.
Oh, yeah.
Sounded like you were closing the door on a 54 Chevy. I mean, they were just not a lot of creature comfort.
Not a lot of insulation.
Yeah, but it was a good truck. I mean, Series 60, 264 gears, 10 speed, set to run about 63 miles an hour. It was really a fuel efficient truck. Single axle, pulling the doubles. It was really efficient truck. That truck, now I will say this. That truck had a really cool looking profile as a single axle pulling doubles because you had it nice and tight back to the trailer and the slope and the roundness of the hood. I mean, it looked really good. It looked so good that truck was featured in the very first nationwide commercial. It was RPS at the time, not FedEx. No, actually, that might have been the year we were Caliber Systems, if I remember right. We were Caliber System for a year, and then that's when FedEx bought it. That they wanted that truck to pull the trailers for their first commercial, and it did. And I did. Here's a crazy thing. I did all of the driving. It took us a week of 10 and 12-hour days, 5 of them, to film a 30-second commercial. I've never seen it. It was insane I have stories that I could tell for about 4 hours from that week. Crazy stories. And then the worst part was when they finished the commercial, it actually sucked. It was really bad. I didn't like it at all. But even though I did all that driving for the week, you'll never see me in the commercial. Anytime the driver stepped out of the truck, they had an actor do it because I wasn't in the union.
It's something the way that all can go. I've done that filming. The reason I asked you about that Aeromax, of course, DT&A had bought Ford heavy truck out, and then it was Sterling, and then eventually it was gone. But the original Cascadia, to me, always looked like a continuation of where the Aeromax would have gone should it.
I think you're right.
Had it continued to evolve.
Yeah, and I had the last, if I remember right, it was the last year before Sterling. Mine was a Ford Aeromax, and I think the next year they were Sterling.
But they had the wider cab, they had the rounded windshield, the way the grill basic shape, the more or less how the headlights were in there, pretty similar is the way I look at it. And you know that when they bought it, they had to get some of the engineering from that side.
Right.
Which they were good trucks.
Yeah, I liked it. Like I said, it wasn't really a comfortable, quiet, nice ride, all that, but it was efficient, and I never really had any problems with it, and it was a good truck for me. I mean, I kept it like I did most of my trucks, about 1.4 million miles. That truck in 1.3 or 4, whatever it was, technically had 5 oil changes in that entire time, and one of them was a mistake. I had put it in a new shop, and I gave them really, really clear directions, and they did a service on it anyway. Over 1 million miles on what could have been 4 oil changes.
It sounds like, Kevin, that somebody's working at the newspaper right now.
I bet that's Alec. I'm going to guess it's Alec.
No, it's not. I have my microphone muted.
Oh, maybe it's our new caller then. James, is that you?
Yes, sir, it's me.
Are you typing a letter back there or something?
No, I'm driving down Highway 69 in Oklahoma.
Oh, that'll do it.
And
that's just your, that's just your teeth rattling then.
Basically that, or the marbles in my head. One, I don't know.
Yeah. Did you used to have dentures?
I will soon, because they're all getting loose. That's for sure.
What can we help you with today?
I can hear it.
Oh, I was calling about these 24 Volvos with the oil cooler leaking into our coolant. All our coolant is brown. I was wondering if Joel knew anything about that stuff.
Yeah, first I've heard of it.
How many trucks you got doing it?
Because we've got about 5 of them at our location, and every one of them has that same problem. But they also came with this biodiesel package. I don't know if somebody sold them that line of stuff, but you know.
Wait a second. Wait a second. What company bought these trucks?
Frito, PepsiCo.
Yeah. Just that thing is not a Volvo system. I actually done some training with that is a completely different deal. So I don't know anything specifically about the oil cooler. I have not heard anything. I'm just trying to think if that system that they put on there may have.
I was going to ask
that somehow, but I guess I just don't know if I know enough of. This is a very involved system to burn 100% biodiesel right through the winter and everything, and it is.
Yeah.
It looks like NASA technology on there, and I'm shocked they really even got it on the truck and running. It's a cool idea, and I think the company's out of New York that came up with it, but I think that it's a step too far for in the real world. So it doesn't surprise me that they may be having some issues, and I'm almost betting they're related, but I wouldn't know how.
Yeah, our mechanic told me he didn't think that they were related, but Volvo's just gonna change our coolant for us until they figure out how to fix it or whatever. That's all they're telling us. I mean, who knows? I don't really, but I'm just curious if you knew anything about it or not.
No, I haven't. I mean, I haven't seen that in my brother's fleet at all. If he's had any failures, he certainly would have told me, and I haven't heard any. I'm interesting because that system, like you said, man, that thing it's out there, and I'm just wondering if somehow there's a connection that's not obvious. But no, I haven't heard anything on just the oil coolers.
Yeah, we're just running regular diesel, buying it at the truck stops right now because we don't have a tank anymore at our location.
Yep.
But they're, I mean, I don't know. They always want to be green and all this stuff too. You know how they think and everything. I mean, they get, they got the lift axle and super singles on them. I mean, they're nice trucks, but it's just bad. But I wanted to ask you about what's the durability of that coolant being out in 120 degrees out in the middle of the desert running that thing with the oil in it.
Well,
how durable is the coolant going to be?
Well, if you're getting oil in your coolant, it's not good at all.
It's not going to be good, and it's going to stop, heat transfer through the radiator, and it's going to be a mess.
Water pump will be well lubricated.
Yeah,
it could be. that could be.
But we don't pull any weight, But
it's
very rarely we pull any weight.
It's not going to matter. You start getting oil in that cooling system, and you're going to have a mess.
Yeah, it will.
And they're brand new trucks.
Well, but they're brand new trucks,
maybe they had
heavily modified.
All the oil coolers or something. Yeah, they are heavily modified.
Right.
God, I was looking at the one that they had at the tech center that they had up near Akron, and Oh my gosh, that system. And they had a whole team in there of people trying to explain that system. And I mean, I was following them, and then I got to talk to the one lady afterwards in private, and holy shit, is that thing if they can make that work, they are. I love the idea, but wow, the amount of technology involved in that to make that work for very little benefit that I can see. Obviously, there's some benefit, but I don't know if you're going to cost justify that one.
You know, Joe, you bring up a thought to me when you talk about that, and I was thinking about it earlier today with motorcycles and everything else, about some technologies that have never come across. You know, like the crankshafts and stuff on four-stroke motorcycles are on bearings, like roller bearings, not, you know, insert-type bearings. And the other one, thinking about this, that Suzuki was really big on, was using the oil as a coolant as well. That, you know, it was one fluid. It was the coolant, it was the lubricating oil, and it went through a heat exchanger, you know, much like a radiator. That, boy, wouldn't that be nice to have one fluid? We wouldn't have to worry about them getting mixed up with each other anymore, would we?
Well, come on. Let's just let's just take this one step further. Screw oil. Let's figure out how to do it all with diesel fuel.
Yeah,
it's a little bit thin for the lubricant side on the bearings. Well, maybe if you went roller bearing like the motorcycle cranks are, you could probably do it all with diesel fuel. Yeah, then you never have to change it. It just run through one set of filters. Man, that'd be great.
All right,
we do what John Walko suggested, and we redesigned the block and offset the crank, and so we've got no. We've got no thrust load, and
there you go.
Just switch it right over to diesel fuel. And
right.
Done.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, they already had used in the past. They've in different times they've used diesel fuel as a coolant for the ECM.
Hey, you know what was? You know what was kind of confusing for me? I recently inherited a 1971 Ford farm tractor, little diesel. And I'm not familiar with this. I've never owned a tractor before, farm tractor. I mean, it's got, you know, attachments on the back and a front end loader. So I'm like, you know, I've never really owned one or worked on one, but there's nothing on here I don't understand. I just got to kind of look around and familiarize myself. And I'm going to put fuel in it the first time. You know what it says on the fuel cap? Light oil.
Oh, yeah.
I looked at the fuel cap and I'm like, light oil? Is this the? Am I going to screw something up here? What and I had to stop for a second and think, kerosene.
Yeah, they don't want you running heavy bunker fuel.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But I thought that was odd. I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait a minute, that's the gas cap. Why does it say light oil? And then it dawned on me, that's kind of what diesel fuel is.
Yeah, you can run kerosene or diesel fuel on that, I believe, when it tells you that. Yep.
Yeah.
They just don't want you getting into. Because back in the day, they used to have that shit that looked like tar. They would dump the stuff. And,
exactly. Yeah. All right, let's go to California. Aaron, welcome.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's time for me to do an oil change on my rear end, and I want to move over to that super light oil, the 7585, but I'm not positive that that's not too light for my truck, because I have a 2017 Freightliner with a Meritor rear end in it. Is that an acceptable oil for it?
I'm pretty sure it meets all the Meritor standards.
Yep.
I'll tell you who
I'd go to check.
Jim Fowler at Michigan MD Alignment. He stocks it, and he will know if that meets that requirement.
Okay, I've had a real tough time finding the Spicer offering the extra fuel efficient stuff. I am able to find it in a Valvoline.
Yeah, he's got it. Jim has it back up there, so and he'll know.
Okay.
Go by
you guys think it's okay, and but I should check with Jim Fowler.
I would double check.
Yeah, just
Can't
double
hurt.
check it.
Right.
But it should be okay. I mean, I've run it in Meritor stuff over on my brother's fleet. We've never had any issues with it. But I would hate to tell you to go out and do it without double checking, because we don't want to run any issues, and then you're calling me back saying you told me.
Yeah,
for sure.
Double check that.
I was curious what the big difference between the brand new rear end that take this ultralight oil is, and then the older ones. I'm trying to imagine what could be so different.
There isn't any real difference. It is there's a fundamental difference between a Dana axle and a Meritor axle, and that is the width or the face on the ring gear. The Dana has a very wide face that distributes the contact patch over a wider area between the gears, and the Meritor is a little thinner. They both claim that each other's are more efficient. Dana claims that they have higher power density. They argue about the stuff back and forth, but at the end of the day, when you put their stuff on dynos and you test them, their efficiency is, they're right on top of each other. The Dana and the single axles a little bit more efficient. The Meritor on their high efficiency axle is, I mean, you got to go like 6 places past the decimal to pick a winner on who transfers power more efficiently. That oil, I believe, is backwards compatible for quite a ways on those axles, but Jim will answer that. I don't think that there's any specific oil-related technology that makes it usable in a new axle and not in an older one. I think it's just going to come down to compatibility with the seals and whatnot, and what the chemical or the additive packages in the oil.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Missouri. Tom, welcome.
Yeah, welcome, gentlemen. Hey, I would love to talk to Tony about his pack car. I'm on Twitter at Tom_Idaho. If Tony's still listening, send me a message or something. But okay, what was there? So, hey, you can't convince me that diesel electric, like a hybrid, isn't going to be the way that everybody goes. Is Volvo or Henry, is Freightliner or anybody working on something like that you know of?
Well, they've all been working on hybrids for a while, but the problem is the states where they can sell them are saying no diesel. So where do you go with that?
Problem, but there's an even more fundamental problem than that. In heavy-duty applications, when you try to run a hybrid, the conversion losses are so heavy that if you are downsped with your powertrain, you have a much bigger kinetic energy efficiency gain than trying to convert power into electric and reapply it. It just doesn't make sense in most over-the-highway applications. You can make an argument for it in a specialty application where you're climbing a lot of hills, maybe getting off-road, and you need a lot of extra torque or something like that.
In town?
But in an over-the-road application, hybrid just doesn't make sense.
Hey, guys, remind me.
Stop and go like trash trucks, it works really well.
I do.
Yes, all that type of stuff it does.
I do 5 shows a day, plus a coaching call, plus a CMC every week, and sometimes I forget when I said what. Did we talk about the cost of the hydrogen last week on this show?
Oh, Lord.
What type of hydrogen? Are we talking
the Nikola hydrogen truck? I actually got numbers.
They're pricey, yes.
No, not the price of the truck. The price of fuel for that truck.
It's and it's expensive.
So
said the same thing, that they have that internal combustion hydrogen engine, and it's not cheap.
Well, this was the Nikola, so hydrogen electric. The company has 75 of them, and they're running them. There are no fuel stations, so they're actually using 2 mobile fueling trucks to fuel these things. Okay. So they gave some numbers that like 22 minutes of fueling time, which wasn't horrible. But it's not as impressive as they tried to make it sound, like they said hours for an electric truck. Well, that's not true, because Tesla claims 80% charge in 30 minutes. An 80% charge, if you're believing Tesla's numbers, gets you about 400 miles. But I also have to question their numbers. But their numbers are horrendous. I have no idea why we're even considering this option. Here's what the range on your hydrogen, 400 miles. That's it. Why do we think these things are so superior on range? They're not. You've got to stop and get hydrogen, and there are no hydrogen stations. So now you can't even make it an entire day of work without trying to find hydrogen somewhere and spending a half hour trying to get it in the truck. That's bad enough. Here's the real problem. They gave the cost of the hydrogen, and they gave me all the numbers I needed to calculate the cost per mile on hydrogen alone, just the fuel. Now, Joel, Henry, you guys are probably in the 30 cent per mile range on diesel, aren't you?
Right close to it, yep.
Yeah. And we have people in the 40s that pretty regular, 40 cents. The cost of hydrogen I calculated at slightly over $5 a mile.
You said what, it was $2,000 to fill that up?
It was $2,240 to fill it up to get 400 miles. So do the math. It's more than $5 a mile. Who in their right mind?
They obviously have a little bit of work to do yet.
Oh, why are we even why aren't we just doing diesel hybrids, diesel electric as a hybrid, if anything? Why are we even messing with this hydrogen?
And why don't we just keep refining just straight up diesel?
That too. Yeah,
because
that's
back to because there's major states that are saying no diesel.
No, I hear you.
Well, then, good.
Well,
no,
all
we have to tell them as an industry is no diesel, no trucks. Figure it out.
Well, I'm not disagreeing. They're just huge
No,
markets.
I know. But
and the amount of states that have joined in with that one state.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal.
Come on.
I'm surprised at some of the states that are going along with it.
And let's think about it. It's $5 a mile, and we're not taxing that fuel yet, and we need to. If those trucks are running on the road, we should not be allowing them to run on the road without paying road taxes right now. And they're not.
Then they keep making the argument to go to a mileage tax, which I disagree with. I say get rid of FET, get rid of the 550, get rid of everything, and jack the fuel tax up to make up for it.
Well, wait, Henry, I'm going to
promote efficiency.
That would be fine if we just stick with diesel and we're done with it. But if you bring in electric, hydrogen, natural gas, all these other crazy fuels, now you have to have different fuel tax systems for every fuel. How inefficient is that?
Well, how different is that really? There is already now. Have you ever looked at the?
Well, no. Wait a minute. If it's going to be fair, it needs to be calculated by how much a gallon allows us to travel down the road. So now you got different calculations on every kind of fuel. It's just overly
they
complicated.
Have that now.
I know. We keep adding new fuels. Let's take a step back and go, wait a minute. If we're going to have 8 different fuels people can use on the road, why don't we just have one mileage tax and be done with it? Simple.
Because here's the problem: is they're taking the tax and they're not using it for the infrastructure what it was intended.
Well, that's
to
a
be,
whole different.
That's not everything
true.
else.
That's a whole different issue.
Yeah, fuel tax has never paid its way for the highways. Every year, the highway fund had to rob from the general fund to make the ends meet. It never meets it. We've been subsidized forever.
But that's just the government.
We don't like to admit it, but we have been.
Right. That is rampant.
The government subsidizes everybody.
Correct.
Farmers, trucking,
that's just
railroads, everybody.
And we should stop.
But how they make us dance the dance.
Yeah, that's a different issue. Tom, what else did you want to talk about?
Oh, the original diesel electric. I just thought, because remember when Tony was talking about going, when you're in, when Joel or Henry are rolling down the road at 63 miles an hour, they're getting really good efficiency. When they're around town is when they're not getting as much efficiency, of course, and the start in hills and whatnot. It seemed to me that if you took the diesel electric and didn't just use the electric for all the time, if you just used it for in town, stop and go, up a hill, that type of thing, you're going to get a lot more, efficiency.
Well, that's kind of the model of what we call the plug-in hybrids now, but you really don't. It's not as efficient.
It's just measured
not
a
the
different
plug-in.
way.
Right.
So it doesn't make any difference if this is hydrogen, if it's electric. It doesn't really make any difference. If you optimize every platform, you optimize a diesel with a faster shifting transmission, like I was discussing with Kevin last week, or you take a hybrid electric, or you take a hydrogen internal combustion. Whichever platform you want. The actual efficiency, when it comes right down to it, it doesn't really differ all that much. When you take the Tesla truck, when they done that run from Northern California down to Southern California, and you convert that to mile per gallon equivalents, Henry's truck and my truck are more efficient than that Tesla truck.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tesla is.
The conversion comes out to 9.28.
Right. The government is talking about emissions, not efficiency.
Right. Or cost.
You can even make that argument that the emissions aren't even really any better. They're just contained in one place.
Right.
There's a lot of people that make that argument. And you have to look at total emissions for electric. What kind of emissions were involved when they made all the wire to run it to the, it gets into a bunch of bullshit. But at the end of the day, one is not really any more efficient than others. One makes you feel better than the other.
Yeah,
is what it comes down to.
As my one engineer friend says, energy's energy. It takes X amount of energy to get from point A to point B.
You're damn right. You can do a calculation. It requires X amount of horsepower to move this load. I don't care if it's electric, if it's hydrogen, if it's diesel fuel, gasoline. It's going to require X amount of horsepower to do that, regardless of the source.
Why aren't we?
This is all just feel good bullshit. It's a shell game, and it just makes politicians feel good. It makes the average public feel good because, oh, look, we're cleaning everything up, and in reality, it's probably exactly the opposite. It's really hamstringing the industry.
Why aren't we just using nuclear?
Yeah, they're all.
We probably should be.
Exactly.
Well, they're working towards that now. The micro nuclear plants. That's a big deal actually right now. Rolls-Royce is big into that.
Well, Kevin, I think probably you see those sunspots coming around this weekend, and maybe the elite, the powers that be, do know more than we do about nuclear, because if all electricity does shut down because of one of those CMEs, that could get ugly. Anyway, okay, that's all I have. Thanks, guys.
All right. I thought I had a thought there. What was it?
Kevin?
Go ahead.
While you're grabbing your thought and I just counted them loosely, I looked how many different fuels are in the EFTA deal right now. It's like 12.
Are there really? Yeah.
Yeah. It's diesel, biodiesel, gasoline, gasohol, liquefied petroleum, compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas, alcohol fuels, ethanol and methanol, E85
hold on a second,
and M85.
though. Hold on a second. If they have all those in there, I can pull up, when I was running propane injection on my trucks testing it, I could pull up to any propane location and get propane. Nobody was charging me road tax on that.
Well, hold on a second, Kevin. Hold on. I was doing the same thing in the state of Ohio, was running it for about 6 months, was doing all my testing. I thought, well, you know what? There's no fuel efficiency gain, but I buy propane cheaper on the truck, so I'm just going to run it.
Yeah.
Pretty soon the state shows up and says, hey, you need to start charging.
Did they really?
We argued it. Yeah, we argued it. And we said, no way, because this engine will not run on propane. It is a supplement or an additive.
Right.
And they said, nope, you're going to pay the tax. So
really?
Yeah, we didn't win.
Ah, interesting. Huh.
Yeah. It was some government official. I don't know who they were with. I know it pissed me off because I thought, well, look, I figured this out. It's going to work. And
how come?
You know what?
How come
when
I'm dealing with
he put it on Facebook and he told everybody what he was doing.
Could be.
This was long before Facebook, my friend.
But here's what I wonder.
Long before Facebook.
How come when I have to interact with the government and I need something, I can't find anybody that knows anything? Exactly.
That's exactly right.
But out of the blue, this guy shows up
from 1,000 miles.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, I thought it was nice when I was on hold with the Secretary of State the other day, which when I got a hold of him was very helpful, but they kept scaling it down when I got on there. You're 60-something in line. And then after a bit it tells you you're 43rd in line, you're 23 in line. And you know what? At least I knew where my progress was. I could go out and work in the foundry for a while.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you just carry
Kevin,
your foundry around.
You know the answer to that.
What?
The answer to your question, Kevin, is that when you call the state or any sort of government, when it requires them taking your money, they're very efficient.
That's true.
But when it's providing customer service,
they're nowhere to be found.
There is no ROI.
Yeah, nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go to, and this is our final call of the day, by the way. We're calling a lid today. Let's go to North Carolina. Matt, welcome. Oh, let me try that again. Maybe I didn't hit the button. Matt,
that was a quick call.
Yeah, Matt, I guess I have to press the button when I say that.
Hey, I was wondering if there's anything I could do to get better fuel mileage of what I'm getting right now from tapped out.
Always.
I run a flatbed southeast. It's a 2016 Freightliner Coronado 122 SD mid-roof sleeper. The wheelbase is, I think it was 244. Gear ratio was 342. It's a 13-speed manual Eaton Fuller DD15. I run about 55 to 58 miles an hour. I think my average for the 30-day is 52 cents at the moment.
Okay, so when you say, is there anything else to do? Are you tapped out? All you gave us were some kind of lousy specs. Have you done anything to improve the fuel economy on it?
Nothing yet. I was going to order the fleet engine filter.
There's one.
That does anything?
It does. That's one improvement.
Max mileage and then the Hot Shot Secret. I was thinking of transferring over to the max mileage. What is it called? The performance or something?
So yeah, there's, I mean, we might have to put this call off till next Friday. I was hoping to get out of here early. I mean, there's a lot you could do on this truck.
Okay.
I mean, we could talk about tires. I have no idea what you have for tires or rolling resistance. We could talk about a lighter weight synthetic oil.
25.
We could talk about flow below. We could throw some air tabs on it. Henry's probably got some other ideas on aerodynamics. We can possibly
preload it.
Yeah, Dr.
Preload, oils,
yeah,
gear lubes,
possibly a tune,
air filters.
Right.
Okay. All right, so I got to do some digging then. Get to work.
Wheelbase is a bit long to try and get the aero right.
What part of the country do you run in?
Right.
Can you get to Pittsburgh?
Southeast mostly.
Can you get to Pittsburgh?
Oh yeah, I can.
You know, they are really.
They did a tune-up for me. I know that.
You know, they are really good at looking at the truck overall and really optimizing fuel mileage in a lot of ways, a lot of little tweaks here and there, and some of the things we've talked about, fleet air filters, lighter oils, tunes, and they kind of have a program where you pull in and say, look, here's what I want maximum fuel mileage. and they'll go over the whole truck and give you all the options. And it's all the things we would talk about here.
Okay. Would you say 8.5 is doable on this?
Oh, absolutely.
If done right.
Yeah, absolutely. You're at 7.7 now with almost nothing.
Right.
8.5 is certainly achievable. My goal would be 9. And that's a little bit of a stretch.
Right. Okay.
That's a little bit of a stretch, but it's not out of the question.
Okay. I guess you hope.
Yeah, you have all kinds of things we could do. Yeah, it's just the easiest place to pull in, and I don't know of any other shop that does this as much as they do.
Right. And I guess I'll get an appointment on that and see what they can do.
There you go. All right. We're going to wrap this up for today. Anybody with some final words of wisdom?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about with this fuel taxes and fuels that are taxed, and I'm looking at the list, and anthracite coal's not on it. So if I could convert my truck to run on steam with an external combustion engine, I don't even think there's any emissions rules for that.
There
you
you go.
About rolling coal.
There you go.
I'd be the coolest kid. You thought you were cool when you got to the parking lot till I showed up.
You'd be the OG.
Yeah, steam powered, buddy.
That's right.
Find old case steam engine and
Henry's gone all steampunk on
button
us.
that up under the hood. Yeah, you talk about downbed.
All right, hey, Henry.
Yeah, there you go.
Henry, here's the problem. I asked anybody if they had any words of wisdom.
Oh,
come on. Hey, steam moved America for a long time.
It did. There's a reason it's not anymore. Anybody else?
It still sort of does.
Yeah.
It's just at the power plant.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a shortage of words of wisdom here today, so we should probably just leave now.
That might be a good
Well,
idea.
we're almost ahead.
Yeah, let's yeah. All right, thanks guys. As always, we will do it again next week. Go ahead, Henry. What do you got?
Enjoy the grandkids.
I'm playing on it. We're heading out to the farm for the day. We're
There
gonna
you
have
go.
fun. Yeah.
Very nice.
All right. We'll
Stay
see
away from the love bugs.
We are
That's
so
Florida.
far away from love bugs here. They're nowhere on the radar. That's a good thing. All right. We will see you next week. Be safe. Be profitable. Be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master